If you know Sly Cooper, you know what I'm about to say for this little introduction. After Sly 3, Sucker Punch went on to make other games like Infamous, but Sly fans were left in the cold. He'd get the occasional reference or guest appearance since then, but a new game seemed like a pipe dream. It's not like the series ended on a cliffhanger though. If things ended the way they did, it was wrapped up pretty nicely. Still, when you see guys like Ratchet make the jump to the PS3, you wonder, man, what would a next-gen Sly look like? So imagine my surprise when just a week after the Sly collection came out, Sly 4 was discovered to be a thing in the distant future. I was beyond excited, and when Thieves in Time finally came out in early 2013, I had a blast with it. But when people talk Sly 4 today, one common thread is how much they hate this game or how it's a blemish on the series. I've seen videos and articles with titles like a bad revival, a total disaster, worst Sly game ever. Like, you're all entitled to your opinions and everything, but would you all just chill? When making this video, it had been 8 years since I last played Sly 4, and my reason for that? I really don't know. It's not like I hated the game, and I went so far as to call it one of my favorites of all time in 2013. Looking back on that decision, I think I was still in a hype mode, but now that some time has passed, I wanted to see how I felt about it again. Well, to start, I have to say that as a longtime Sly fan, the whole setup is a dream come true. When I first heard this game was being done by a new studio, I wasn't sure how close they would stick to the originals. Not only did they pick up right where Sly 3 left off, but they even followed up on Bentley's Time Machine teaser. That is devotion right there. To give you the basics, Sly was living the life with Carmelita, faking his amnesia from the last game, but then Bentley shows up and tells him pages from the Thievius Raccoonus are vanishing into thin air, being stolen through time by a new set of villains. Not only that, but Bentley's sweetheart Penelope has suddenly gone missing too, so it's time to get the gang back together, set things right, and find out who's responsible. The Paris prologue does everything right for getting an old fan back in the saddle. Seeing the gang do their thing, hearing their banter, and looking better than ever, it feels like coming back home. And to wrap this bit up, you take control of the Cooper van and send the gang to times unknown, and that title screen comes up. Man, it still gives me tingles. Every time I see this game in action, there is no doubt this is the best looking Sly game. The animation is off the charts, and the in-game cutscenes have the old games beat by a country mile. It's not even a contest. Characters move with so much energy and animate so fluidly, no repeated movements or gestures anywhere. The series was finally free from its limitations and became the full-blown cartoon it always wanted to be. This also rings true for the 2D cutscenes. I think the old games purposely went for a moving comic book look rather than full animation, but this is still great, and there's so much more of them, not just one for the start and end of a chapter. One thing I think goes unnoticed is all the extra details of Sly 4. Sanzaru managed to pepper this game with so much detail, it's insane. Firing it up again, I found out it has a digital manual, and call me a bad fan, but I never knew this was here before now. I was gonna go into this big rant about Sly 4 not having one like the old games, but they outdid themselves with this. They brought back Bentley's notes, there's enhanceable screenshots, moving images. This is a virtual manual done right. For the game itself, everything I rediscovered reaffirmed how much the team cared about doing Sly justice. Even something as little as the health icons got some attention. Icons for all the game's bosses have extra animations, and anytime Sly gets a new outfit, each icon has their own garments. I would not have batted an eye if these weren't here, but man, I'm impressed. And the job failed screen, which was just a black screen with text in the old games, is a spectacle in comparison. They got creative with a lot of the text too, with quite a few telling you how much you suck, and these got a good laugh out of me. And if we're talking fan service, you are gonna be in heaven with all the callbacks and references here. A big one for me was seeing they brought back Dimitri. Well, I mean, sorta. He appears in the 2D cutscenes, but doesn't actually show up in-game, and he doesn't talk either. Even weirder, because he did talk in an E3 trailer, his voice actor David Scully is in the credits, and he's even in Bentley's hack pack with a 3D model, so I guess something got cut before the game shipped. Still, I'm glad he wasn't forgotten. If they had to bring back anyone from the old crew, it's good to see they went with the best member. Clue bottles and treasures are back too, and I didn't know how much I'd miss them. For treasures, there's now 12 in each world, and when you bring them back to the safe house, they have their own dedicated wall, and each one has a unique backstory. Some are standalone, others reference the Sly universe, and some even reference other PlayStation series like the ones for Clank and Daxter. And getting all 30 bottles nabs you an extra special treasure, acting as a power-up and a lore dump. This coin from Mugshot increases loot drops, but it's also the last remnant of his casino from Sly 1, and he used it as a lucky charm during the Aces competition in Sly 3. That is so cool! You can also find Clockwork's Eye, the last surviving bit of the Mad Bird that highlights all bottles in an overworld. And speaking of, Clockwork himself can be found in every level, keeping an eye on the Coopers throughout the years, just like he said! That freaked me out when I first saw that. I remember Sanzaru also held a contest where you could submit a treasure design to be featured in the final game, and my brother and I workshopped some ideas but didn't get far. The winners were the Bright Cane Polish treasure and Mrs. Puffin's cookie jar, the latter referencing a character who only showed up in the Sly comics. James P., wherever you are, you rock. Getting the chance to play as Sly's ancestors had me over the moon. All the years hearing their feats and abilities, and now you get the chance to play as and interact with them. And true to Cooper lore, these guys are so cool. They've got great personalities and charm to spare. Tennessee was always a favorite, and all these years later, he's still the best Cooper to play as. Not to mention getting to grind on train tracks like the Thieves Raccoonist said, beyond awesome. And as someone I'd want to hang out with, Salim Al-Kupar is unmatched. Dude just wants to retire and chill to his heart's content. Plus, he's voiced by Brian George, and that guy is one of my favorite actors ever. Anyone remember Bob and Margaret or those Pizzaville radio ads in Ontario? It was a rainy day when Pizzaville... No one? Just me? Okay. If you've played Sly 2 and 3, you know what to expect for gameplay. A big overworld with a bunch of jobs, things to collect, enemies to fight or avoid, the whole 9 yards. Why fix what ain't broken? And Sly 4 fine-tunes everything done before to make the best version of it. A mini-map's been added to the hub to lay things out even better, and made looking for objectives much less aimless, but if you're a purist, you can turn it off. One area that doesn't feel quite as good as before is the combat. Everything works, but it looks a bit jerky and doesn't have the same weight to it as before. When you hit enemies with Murray or performed a knockout slam with Sly, you felt the weight of each move, but here it's not as satisfying. On the topic of moves, ThiefNet's got a bunch of new stuff to buy alongside old favorites, and one I used a lot was Sly's rail sprint. I don't know how I went this long without it, and I love that blur effect. Sly also has a different costume for each world, and at first I thought they were cool enough, having much more utility than Sly 3's outfits, but on my revisit, I learned they were also used for collecting treasures. Most are used in worlds outside their origin, and there's times where you'll use several of them to get around. That was a real eye-opener. The safe house has more things to do as well. I totally forgot about this ping pong game, and you can even play it with another human. You don't get anything from it, but it's nice seeing these guys chill out and take a breather in-game like in cutscenes. We've also got a new collectible with Sly masks. 60 are hidden throughout the game and give out some cool cosmetic rewards. Things like different designs for Sly's paraglider or costumes for all the main characters. And the more you get, the sweeter the rewards. Getting 50 swaps out the Cooper cane for Ratchet's wrench, and all coins turn into bolts. Getting all 60 nabs you Cole's amp from Infamous, and Infamous Second Son has a ringtone that's the first bit of Sly 4's main theme. I love when games and studios do that kind of stuff. Bentley's hacking games make a return, and now come in 3 different styles. The first is your usual hack job, and this is what they should have looked like from the start. They've got a color scheme that's easy on the eyes, and I love Bentley's little turtle tank. The second style's a scrolling shooter where you shoot creatures straight up out of an old YTV bumper, and it's got a remix of Bentley's theme from Sly 1. I never thought I'd hear that in a modern Sly game. And the third style uses the PS3's gyro controls. It's a cute idea, though I do wish there was an alternate control method, but still, these are pretty short. Sly 4 also introduces some rhythm-based segments, which I found alright, even if some go on a bit too long, and there's quite a few QuickTime events as well. I don't have a big issue with QuickTime events in general, but some happened during boss fights, and I wasn't too thrilled about that. One thing that really annoyed me, and I'm sure you've heard about it before, were the load times. I feel like I'm talking about Crash 4 right now, and it's funny how these are both fourth quills in a dormant series with a plot about time travel that can't be a coincidence. These load times are so long, I got things done between them. You can go to the bathroom, make a phone call, do your daily exercises, and so much more. There's even times where you'll get a loading screen, get a quick cutscene, and then get another loading screen immediately after. Like, just kill me! If you want to play as someone who doesn't have a job available, the game asks if you're sure about that, and no wonder it can be a pain to even think about exploring. And talking about exploration, it's a case of give and take. When you complete a job, it sends you straight back into the hideout each time, so if you want to mess around in a level, you better do it before starting a mission or something. But again, there is so much to do, and I dedicated a good hour to just exploring levels as diligently as possible, fully aware it was of no use for this video. Now, if you want to talk about music, well, this is my favorite soundtrack in the series. Sly composer Peter McConnell makes his return alongside a few new faces, and together they've made something truly special. This stuff could play in a Hollywood epic, and if you told someone it all came from a game with a hippo who doesn't wear pants, I'm sure they'd have some questions. Now, I'm a sucker for big band and swing, and Sly has it in spades, with one of my favorites being Tavern Tomfoolery. I completely forgot about it, but hearing it again in this mission, fighting bad guys and causing a ruckus, oh, it was so good. Funny, when I was playing Sly 4, I saw an episode of Batman the Animated Series later that day, an episode called A Bullet for Bullock that's got some fantastic music in one fight scene especially, and it reminded me of Sly and vice versa. I don't know where I'm going with this, but I need more of this music in my life. But I have to ask, why the heck does Sly music keep popping up in the weirdest places? I saw an episode of The Loud House in 2016, and I swear it used Sly 4's main theme. Then I remember America's Got Talent was on in another room and there was a guy on stage, and again, a Sly 4 track was playing during his bit. And more recently, a post from an official Disney Twitter account used Sly 4's Arabian theme. This is like if I heard a song from Tropical Freeze in Avengers Endgame. It's so weird, but the weirdest thing about all of this is when you look for answers, nobody has a clue. I saw one person say, oh, Disney has a lot of money, they could license it out. But like, why would Disney want Sly music for anything? Hearing tracks pop up in places other than Sly, it makes one think some of these weren't made for Sly at all, like insert songs you'd hear in SpongeBob or Ren and Stimpy. It's still fantastic stuff, don't get me wrong, but I need some closure on this. Alrighty, now onto the bit where I talk voiceover. Thieves in Time has the most solid performances we've ever gotten out of the series, and everyone has great chemistry with each other. The original games were done with a Seattle-based cast, but here it's mostly done by an LA crew, with video game heavy hitters like Steve Bloom, Nolan North, Yuri Lowenthal, and Gray Delisle. Speaking of Gray, she carries the tradition of new Carmelita voice with a new Sly game, and I'd say she's the best we've ever gotten.
When I saw that arrogant little, but no good lying, I should have tied his mangy tail around his neck. I should have blasted that smug look right off his face. I should probably just finish my story.
We got a sneak peek of her voice in PlayStation All-Stars months before Thieves in Time came out, alongside one of the game's songs, which for as meh as All-Stars was, is still cool. For other standouts, Kevin Miller is just unbelievable as Sly here. With every line, you can tell he's having an absolute blast getting to play Sly again. His enthusiasm is super infectious, and it's like catching up with an old friend. And the madman did it. He brought back the Italian accent, and I got so giddy hearing it again.
Is there something wrong with your voice?
No, I've talked like this my whole life.
While the cast does a great job, I will say sometimes there can be too much talking in-game. Toothpick's chapter was wall-to-wall chatter. Way too many times where you'd hear Sly banter, then hear Toothpick on the intercom at the same time, fighting for that real estate on your ears. There's also a lot of repeating dialogue in some sequences, and if you suck at one, you're probably gonna learn that dialogue in no time. Fun, right? Fun, right? Fun, right? If you got that reference, I feel your pain. And who can forget? Shoot, I need some more fish!
Shoot, I need some more fish!
Not gonna lie, I really like that line. To briefly touch on Sly 4's villains, they kind of remind me of the second game's ensemble. Some members are cooler than others, and yet, even in the years since I last played this, I still remembered each one by name, so that's a good sign. El Jefe was a fun introduction to the game. Even though he's pretty serious, he does have a weird sense of humor, and I love this bit where he straight up breaks the fourth wall. Toothpick was hilarious, and guys like the Grizz and Miss Decibel, I felt sorry for half the time. Decibel especially. Apart from her backstory, she thinks she has a thing going on with the main villain, but she ends up getting manipulated worse than anybody in the end. And Le Paradox, he's a weird one. Though a decent criminal genius from his own line of master thieves, we find out the reason he went after the Coopers was out of jealousy. At first he said it was cause his dad got carted off to jail instead of Sly's dad, but really, he just wanted to prove he was a better thief than any Cooper was, blowing his own cover to do so. The game makes it clear how big an ego this guy has, probably why his designs got such a big head, and though I like him more than Klokla, I see him and just think, man, what an idiot. But wait, isn't there someone I'm forgetting? Well, I've tried avoiding it, but I can't do it any longer. During my replay, I remembered how much fun this game was, but there was a creeping reminder in the back of my head saying, we're getting close to that one part, you can't escape it. Remember how Penelope went missing? Well, when we get to chapter 4, we encounter its big bad, the mysterious Black Knight. As we got closer to figuring out his identity, I started putting the pieces together. We're not seeing his face, his title has the word black in it, and his on-screen text is pink now. Oh no, it's Penelope. Then she comes out of the suit and I am feeling so many things all at once, none of them good. Who thought this was a good idea? Like seriously, who said this was okay? I will never understand why they went down the road they did with one of the sweetest, nicest members of the crew. I'm not saying a twist like this has never worked, but it just didn't here. Sure, Penelope was a bit of a nut job when you think about it, but I never got the impression she resented anyone in the Cooper gang. She got along with them all just fine. This just came out of nowhere, and her spiel about Sly holding Bentley back? Are we just forgetting all that time you and Bentley spent together, doing things Bentley himself said wouldn't have been possible doing with Sly and Murray? And Bentley says he lost sight of his true friends? That's the exact reason she dumped you! Oh my god, oh my god, I could rant and rave about this all day long. I've seen ideas like she could have been a double agent and double-crossing Le Paradox. Or instead of having Penelope being the Black Knight, make it someone like Raleigh from Sly 1. That would have been awesome. I don't usually go if I were in charge, but if the story continued, I'd redeem Penelope by, I don't know, saying she was hypnotized or threatened by Le Paradox, something to bring her back to planet Earth. This game did so much right, and I was just fine with the story right up until here. It's just one screw up, but it is a huge screw up and will forever be a blemish on the game, though I just try to pretend it never happened. And I think that's a decent enough segue into the final chapter and ending. We get back to present day Paris, where Paradox has the Cooper Canes, Carmelita, and control of the city. This part is pretty sweet. All the Coopers we met along the way get one final hurrah before going back home, plus it's just cool seeing them all in one place. With time restored and Carmelita saved, Sly takes on Le Paradox in his time blimp, and though it looks cool, this fight is one big quick time event, and yeah, not the best way to go out. As the blimp goes down in flames, Paradox gets the drop on Sly and takes his paraglider, leaving Sly a sitting duck. Sly assures him he won't get far with a threat that, I'm sorry, just makes me laugh.
You won't get away with this. I'll find you.
Then the screen fades to white and that's it. In an epilogue reminiscent of the last games, Bentley talks about Sly's absence and how everyone goes back to doing their own thing while holding out hope for Sly's return. Then the credits roll and that's the end, and you bet I was ticked off. I thought, no, that can't be it, so I searched up anything I could find online, but what I got just made me even angrier. If you beat the game 100%, you get a cutscene showing Sly waking up in ancient Egypt, hinting at something with Slight in common. The first Cooper recorded recorded before Bob. But again, that's it. According to Sanzaru, Egypt was going to be a DLC chapter, but for reasons unknown, they never got the green light to make it, so Sly's been stuck in Egypt since 2013. I would have been fine with Sly 4 being the last game if it didn't end on a cliffhanger, and I just want to see a Sly 5, or Slive as I've called it, just to get him back home. And again, if we're talking things I'd like to see, have him jump forward in time to meet his father during his thieving heyday. Maybe with his old partners McSweeney and Dr. M, wouldn't that be something? But what's Sly's future looking like in the real world? I guess I have to mention the Sly movie. If you followed this film, you know it was in development hell for some time, and after the Ratchet & Clank movie bombed, it was basically shelved. I would be upset, but I was one of 6 people to see that movie in theaters, and I hated it so much. I thought if that's what they did to Ratchet, I don't even want to think about what they might do to Sly, so I'm alright with it being shelved. Then there were talks about an animated series that never went anywhere, but honestly I'm fine with what we've gotten. Sly is a game, an animated show, and a great story rolled into one. There's something about raccoons and them giving me everything I need, though I'd be up for more games, as unlikely as it seems right now. Sucker Punch, like Naughty Dog, has abandoned the idea of even touching anything that looks cartoony ever again, and Sanzaru's been snapped up by Facebook in the years since, so just like in the game, Sly's future is uncertain. And then he showed up in Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart and everyone was like, what? I guess now's a good time to bring up Bentley's Hack Pack, which was released alongside Sly 4. I never got to buying this until the PS Store was announced to shut down in July 2021, and then Sony remembered they liked money and backpedaled on that, but I didn't want to forget it. It's a collection of Sly 4's hacking mini-games, and it is pretty addictive. I wasn't crazy about the alter ego game in Sly 4, but I am all over this for Hack Pack, though my least favorite games were the gyro-based ones. I really wish these had a normal control scheme, and this Super Bentley is borderline terrifying. There's 20 levels for each style, and you get arcade tokens for completing objectives in them, and those can be used to buy even more treasures from Dimitri's prize wall. These levels are pretty short and you think, I could go for another, or I'm sure I could get a better score. On the first night, I ended up playing this for 4 hours straight and had to stop myself from doing any more. It's also got all the details you'd expect from Sly 4 proper, and if you get everything, you get to see the gang perform a rock version of the Sly theme. For $2.99, that's not too shabby, so if you're craving more Sly stuff and haven't picked this up yet, definitely do so. I said many a year ago that this was my favorite Sly game, but now I'm not sure which one is my favorite anymore. Each game has their pros and cons, and I love them all for different reasons. For Sly 4, in terms of gameplay, graphics, music, voice acting, fan service, bonus content, it's the game that does it the best. The one place it fumbles is story, and for Sly, that area is just as important as any other. I know a lot of folks hate this game with a passion, but I can't bring myself to do the same. After I beat the main story, the first thing I thought was, man, I can't wait to play this again. Sanzaru did a fantastic job carrying the Cooper legacy, and if you haven't played it for yourself, I definitely recommend it. Just pretend Penelope is a hologram or something to get you through the plot twist. It's been so fun revisiting this series front to back again, and to be able to share my experiences with you guys. I hope you enjoyed hearing me talk about some of my favorite games ever, and here's hoping we haven't seen the last of this cunning, devious, thievious Raccoonus and his pals. Whatever happens next, I'll be waiting patiently. This might take a while. Anybody got any gum? Hey there folks, thanks for watching. I really hope you enjoyed what you saw. If you did, feel free to give this video a like, share with a friend, subscribe, check out my social media pages, my Patreon page, all that good stuff that I always ramble on about at the end. And what do you guys think of Sly 4? Do you like it? Do you dislike it? What are some of your favorite bits? How do you feel about that plot twist, huh? Or what's your favorite Sly game? Whatever the case, sound off in the comments below. I'd love to read them. And while you're here, feel free to check out the videos I got on screen. I enjoyed making them. Hopefully you'll enjoy watching them, but you know, there's no guarantee on that. And with all that said, I'll see you guys next time. Once again, I hope you enjoyed the Cooper Marathon. Later!